The chamber of the Galactic Council was designed to intimidate. Towering crystal spires reached into a vaulted dome, catching starlight from Altair outside and scattering it across the polished floor. Delegates of 100 species filled the circular tiers, their voices blending into a low storm of clicks, hums, and resonant chords. Into that storm stepped a single human. Ambassador Marcus Hale carried no weapons, no armor, only a thin black suit and the weight of a devastated world. His boots echoed on the chamber floor, each step deliberate. He could feel the eyes on him, compound, faceted, reptilian, luminous. Some were curious, others hostile, a few pitying. None were neutral. The Speaker of the Council, a translucent being whose form shifted like smoke trapped in glass, extended a tendril of light. Ambassador of the Terran Union, you have been granted voice. Speak your grievance. Hale nodded once. His throat felt dry, but his voice came out steady. On the colony world of Erivos 4, 2 million people lived. Families. Farmers. Engineers. Children. A ripple of alien murmurs rose, quickly subdued. Hale lifted a hand, and a hollow projector on his wrist flared. The chamber darkened as the images appeared above him, cities burning, towers collapsing under orbital fire, desperate transmissions cut mid-scream. Silence swept the chamber. Hale forced himself to keep his eyes on the projection, even as the memory tore at him. He remembered the first transmission he'd received, his aide whispering in disbelief. Ambassador, Erivos 4 is under attack. He had listened to the static-filled cries of survivors, the unmistakable roar of bombardment. His daughter's school had stood in that city once. They came without warning. Hale continued. Orbital strikes. Ground troops. The assault lasted hours. When it ended, the colony was ash. His jaw tightened. We recovered fragments from the battlefield. Hull plating, power cells, weapons fire. All traceable to a single source. He paused. The council leaned forward as one organism. The Kthari Dominion. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, growls, mechanical tones of protest. Hale let it wash over him. In the third tier, he saw them, the Kthari delegation, scaled figures wrapped in crimson robes, their leader sitting tall and still. Chancellor Ziritha's slitted eyes gleamed with amusement. The speaker gestured for order. You make a grave accusation, Ambassador Hale. Present what proof you carry. Hale's wrist device shifted images. Close shots of alloy shards, charred Dominion insignia stamped on broken plating, energy readings burned into Erivos IV's atmosphere. Technical overlays ran across the projection. These are not pirate weapons, Hale said firmly. These are Dominion signatures, ship drives and weapon calibrations unique to their fleets. We all know pirates cannot manufacture warship alloys. And we all know who does. The chamber stirred again, but this time unease outweighed dismissal. Several envoys whispered to their aides. A few looked directly at the Kthari with narrowed eyes. At last Zirith rose. His voice carried a deep resonance, smoothed by decades of diplomacy. Ambassador Hale, your passion is admirable, but misguided. Pirates are opportunists. They steal, they scavenge. It is common for stolen materials to appear where they should not. Surely you do not mean to accuse the Dominion itself of ordering such barbarism. Hale's eyes locked on him. I do. The words rang louder than he expected, bouncing off the crystal spires above. A hush fell. Even the speaker's tendrils dimmed. Zirith tilted his head slowly, reptilian smile widening. Then you are a reckless man, human. One who mistakes coincidence for conspiracy. Perhaps you should ask yourself why your people are always so quick to find enemies. Murmurs of agreement rippled across the tiers. Hale recognized the pattern, paint humanity as impulsive, desperate, too young for serious politics. It was the oldest game in the chamber. He drew a breath and answered evenly. Because we still remember what it means to bury our dead. A flicker passed through the crowd, uneasy, thoughtful. The speaker interjected. Ambassador, are you requesting sanctions, or merely an investigation? Hale studied the chamber. He could see the decision forming in their expressions. They wanted to bury Arrivos for beneath procedure. Endless committees. Neutral inquiries. A quiet death for a human colony, smothered in bureaucracy. If they erase our dead, humanity dies with them. His hands clenched behind his back. He had sworn to keep his soldiers' fire buried under diplomatic discipline. But discipline had not saved Arrivos for. Our request is simple, Hale said, voice steady but edged. Justice. The hollow projection dimmed, leaving only his figure in the spotlight. He felt the weight of every gaze pressing on him, weighing his words, judging whether humanity's grief was worth their risk. The chamber's silence stretched. Hale felt his heart hammering, but he forced calm into his stance. He could not show desperation. He could not blink. Finally, the speaker's light pulsed again. Your words are entered into record. The council shall deliberate. Hale gave a curt nod, though dread coiled in his chest. He had seen that phrase used before, an elegant way of saying your plea will vanish into archives, forgotten by morning. As he turned from the podium, his eyes met Ziritha's once more. The Chancellor's gaze was cool, amused, dismissive, as though Arrivos Ivy's ashes were a mere inconvenience. Hale's jaw tightened. The game was clear. They expected humanity to bow, to retreat into silence, to accept that the deaths of their citizens were a footnote in galactic politics. He walked back to his seat, his aides whispering urgently, but he barely heard them. The images of burning cities still hung in his mind, his daughter's schoolyard buried beneath rubble. They thought they could erase humanity's grief with silence. They were wrong. The chamber had not quieted since Marcus Hale left the podium. Voices overlapped in dozens of tongues, some rising in outrage, others in mockery, still others in veiled caution. The speaker's tendrils of light pulsed in vain, struggling to impose order over the swelling storm. Hale sat rigid in his chair, eyes fixed on the council floor. His aides whispered updates, but he barely listened. He could feel the shift happening. What had begun as shock was settling into something more dangerous, dismissal. They would smother Arrivos for under politics, and the Kthari would leave unscathed. At last, the speaker's voice cut through the noise. The chamber will resume orderly debate. The delegate of the Dominion has requested reply. Chancellor Zirith rose, his scaled form moving with deliberate grace. He spread his clawed hands, as though offering serenity to the storm. His voice carried smoothly, each syllable wrapped in practiced calm. Counselors, let us not be swayed by grief masquerading as fact. The Terran Union has suffered a tragedy, yes, but must tragedy be weaponized into accusation? Pirates roam every lane of this galaxy. They steal, they scavenge, they repurpose. To suggest the Dominion commanded such atrocities is not only reckless, it is destabilizing. A murmur of approval circled the tiers. Hale noted how easily they followed the Dominion's narrative. Fear of war made eager ears. Zirith pressed on, his tone softening as if in pity. Humans are newcomers here. Their fire is commendable, but untempered. They seek enemies because they lack patience. They misinterpret coincidence as conspiracy. His slitted eyes found Hale. And perhaps their grief blinds them. Hale rose slowly, ignoring the murmurs that warned against interrupting. His voice cut across the chamber like steel. Grief does not erase facts. These were not pirate drives. Not scavenger allies. Arrivos 4 was struck with Dominion signatures we can trace to your fleets. He gestured to the projections still hovering above the hall. Weapon fragments, energy readings, Dominion markings scorched into hull plating. No pirate has access to this. No scavenger deploys orbital strikes with the precision of a standing navy. Ziritha's smile never faltered. Or perhaps your investigators planted evidence. Who can say what a desperate people might do, eager to find someone to blame? A wave of whispers erupted. Accusation turned back upon the accuser. Hale felt the chamber tilting again, the tide of politics stronger than truth. He took one step forward. His voice dropped lower, measured, each word pressed into the council like a blade. You dare suggest we forged the deaths of our own? The silence that followed was sharp. Even the speaker hesitated, tendrils flickering uncertainly. Zirith only shrugged, feigning weariness. I suggest only that humans are young, and youth is prone to error. The word young rang like an insult across the tiers. Hale knew the connotation well. To the elder races, youth meant naive, volatile, expendable. The word carried a death sentence for Revos, for if they accepted humanity as children, then the dead would be written off as an accident of inexperience. Hale drew a long breath. He had promised restraint, but restraint had bought nothing. They wanted silence. They wanted compliance. He stepped fully into the open floor, his voice resonant, sharp enough to still the chamber. You attacked our home? The effect was instant. The chamber froze. Dozens of alien eyes fixed on him, unblinking. The speaker's light dimmed to a pale flicker. Even Ziritha's smile cracked for the briefest second. Hale let the silence stretch, then repeated slower, harder. You attacked our home. The words reverberated across crystal walls, carrying more weight than any evidence could. They were not data, not fragments, not readings. They were accusation born of fury restrained too long. Gasps erupted. Some delegates recoiled, others leaned forward, enthralled. Whispers turned into shouts. Withdraw the claim! He seeks war! Proof! Demand proof! The speaker's voice thundered to reassert order. Ambassador Hale, you tread on perilous ground. The Council does not tolerate reckless declarations. Hale's gaze never wavered. The only recklessness was thinking humanity would remain silent while our dead are buried under politics. One of the elder delegates, a towering insectoid with shimmering wings, rose hesitantly. Ambassador Hale, if you cannot produce incontrovertible evidence, your accusation may fracture the Council itself. War could follow. Hale answered without hesitation. War already followed. It followed us to Arivos 4. It burned our homes and slaughtered our families. What do you call that if not war? The chamber fell quiet again. Not convinced, but shaken. Zirith broke the silence, his voice a growl beneath its polish. Careful, human. Consequences follow words you cannot retract. Hale turned to face him fully. Consequences followed your ships when they crossed into our skies. Do not mistake our restraint for weakness. The two locked eyes across the chamber, predator against predator, but of different breeds. One fought with shadows and influence, the other with blunt force of will. The speaker intervened before the silence could ignite into something worse. This council will recess. Deliberations will resume when tempers cool. The gavel of light struck, signaling adjournment. Delegates rose, voices swirling again into a storm of arguments and whispers. Some avoided Hale's eyes entirely. Others regarded him with new calculation, wariness mixed with something harder to define. Respect, perhaps? His aides approached quickly. One whispered, You shouldn't have said it outright. They'll call it provocation. Hale's jaw set. It was the truth. Another aide glanced nervously at the Kthari delegation, gathering in tight formation around Zirith. Truth alone doesn't survive here. Politics does. Hale watched as the Chancellor exited the chamber, tail lashing once, eyes burning with promise. The kind of promise that meant reprisal. He felt the weight of the chamber pressing on him, the knowledge that his words had tilted the board irreversibly. Humanity had declared its defiance before the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. There would be no quiet retreat now. But as Hale stood amid the storm of whispers, he felt no regret. Irivos Ivy's ashes demanded more than silence. The Council wanted compromise. The Dominion wanted submission. Humanity would give them neither. The Council chamber returned to session with the atmosphere of a battlefield. The air thrummed with restrained tension, every delegate acutely aware of the line that had been crossed. Guards stood in doubled numbers at the entrances, though they carried ceremonial weapons. Marcus Hale walked back into the circle at the center, shoulders squared, face unreadable. He felt the eyes of the galaxy upon him, weighing his species against centuries of precedent. Humanity was still young, still fragile compared to these civilizations, but no longer silent. The speaker's crystalline form pulsed with gravity. This chamber will reconvene. The Terran ambassador has accused the Dominion of direct assault. Such words cannot stand without final evidence. Present what you carry or retract. Hale raised his wrist console. A final hollow projection shimmered to life above him, grainy, recorded in the dim hold of a transport ship. A figure appeared, bound in restraints, scales glistening under interrogation lights. The voice was unmistakably Kthari, guttural yet clear. We were ordered. Dominion command sanctioned the strike. The humans grow too fast. Erivos was chosen as a warning. Gasps tore through the chamber. The alien voices rose at once, some in disbelief, others in fury. The speaker's light flared, straining to impose order. Xerath shot to his feet, robes whipping around his scaled frame. His voice cracked like a whip. Forgery! Humans are adept manipulators. This is nothing but manufactured deceit. But the chamber no longer leaned so easily. Delegates conferred urgently with aides, voices sharpened with suspicion. The fragments, the energy signatures, the confessor's voice, it was too much to dismiss. Hale didn't flinch. Every second of that recording is authenticated. The Council's own analysts have copies. He let his gaze sweep across the tiers. You can bury fragments. You can question calibrations. But you cannot silence one of their own officers. The insectoid delegate with shimmering wings rose, voice resonant. If this is true, then the Dominion has violated every principle this Council stands for. Another, a crystalline envoy, chimed in. And if it is false, humanity has risked plunging us into chaos. All eyes turned to Xerath. The Chancellor's composure wavered, though he forced a smile that showed too many teeth. Lies. Or the weak testimony of a deserter seeking favor from his captors. Hale stepped forward, closing the distance between them without hesitation. His voice cut through the din, steady and low, yet carrying to every corner. We did not come here seeking war. We came seeking justice. But if the Council will not act, humanity will. The words rang with finality. No threat, no plea, simply a declaration. The chamber erupted again. Some shouted for censure, others for investigation, still others for immediate sanctions. The speaker raised its light tendrils, booming above the clamor. Enough! The evidence stands. This chamber cannot ignore such charges. An inquiry shall commence. The Dominion will submit its records. Until then, this Council recognizes the Terran grievance. It was not a verdict, but it was not dismissal. It was survival, earned, not granted. Xerath's claws dug into the podium before him, fury barely restrained. He hissed low enough for only Hale to hear. You've made enemies you cannot imagine, human. Hale's eyes locked with his, unblinking. So did you. For a heartbeat, predator and prey blurred, either yielding. Then Xerath turned sharply, robes flaring, and strode from the chamber, his entourage scurrying behind. The chamber slowly settled, though the whispers lingered, of war, of fear, of humanity's audacity. Some eyes regarded Hale with hostility, others with something harder to read. Respect, perhaps? The speaker addressed him one final time. Ambassador Hale, your words have shifted this chamber. Know that the path you tread is dangerous. Hale inclined his head. We have lived with danger since we first left our cradle. But we will not kneel to it. The gavel of light struck, ending the session. Outside the chamber, Hale walked the long corridors of the station. His aides trailed silently behind, their faces pale but burning with adrenaline. One finally spoke. Ambassador, do you realize what you've done? The Dominion won't let this stand. Hale's pace didn't falter. They already didn't. Another whispered, almost in awe. You made them listen. No one has spoken to the Council like that, not in centuries. Hale stopped at the viewport overlooking Altair. The star burned bright, eternal, casting long beams across the station's hull. He remembered Erivos for its skies blackened, its cities turned to flame. His daughter's school buried under rubble. He spoke softly, but his words carried steel. They thought they could erase us with silence. Instead, they heard us. For the first time since the attack, the weight on his chest eased, if only slightly. Humanity had drawn its line in the sand. The galaxy had seen it. Beyond the viewport, the stars stretched endless, indifferent witnesses to all that passed. Hale studied them with calm resolve. If war came, humanity would fight. If peace was offered, humanity would remember. But whatever came, no one would mistake them for children again. The Council had been shocked. The Dominion had been challenged. And humanity had spoken its truth.